As we dive into Volume 21, I thought I'd do something a little different from previous videos. As we know, a lot of these national park missing person cases have some pretty strange circumstances that surround them. One consistent fact that keeps resurfacing is the extreme change of weather for the worst after the person goes missing. Of course, it could all be purely coincidental, but I think it merits some recognition nonetheless. Join me as I count down 10 more of the strangest state and national park missing person cases out there. Number 10. On June 7th of 2005, a 56-year-old man named Charles Beltz disappeared in the rural Houghton area of Spring Creek Township, Pennsylvania. The experienced outdoorsman had planned a 4-day camping trip at Clear Creek State Park Campground, but when he failed to check in with his family halfway through his stay, they contacted park officials. Park rangers found his 1992 Plymouth Caravan at the campsite with most of his personal belongings still inside. His tent was still set up and a fire ring was still smoldering right next to it, but there was no sign of Charles anywhere. For the entire 2 days he was there at the campsite, there were no other campers at the campground and therefore no witnesses and no one to interview. An extensive 5-day search turned up no results of Charles, and to this day, he remains missing. Number 9. On September 7th of 1997, a 27-year-old man named David Crouch disappeared in the Bridger-Teton Wilderness area of Wyoming. David went hiking with friends and became separated near Lake Island at approximately 10,500 feet of elevation. The 3 friends explained that David had marched ahead of them for just a moment but never rejoined him. The group then ran up the trail for nearly a mile while calling out for David, but they never heard or saw him. An extensive search of the area, which involved more than 24 searchers, including family members, failed to locate any sign of him, and to this day, he remains gone. Number 8. On August 27th of this year, a 33-year-old man named Rodney Letterman disappeared inside the Arkansas State Park in Devil's Den, Arkansas. Rodney became separated from his hiking companions on the afternoon of the 27th while hiking on Butterfield Trail. He and his friend camped overnight in the park before making the hike. At the time the two became separated, Rodney was experiencing a medical issue, so the friend returned to the vehicle to retrieve medical supplies and medication, and when he returned a short time later, Rodney was gone. A large search team kicked off and searchers located Rodney's cell phone around the area where he disappeared, but no other trace of him was found. Shortly after his disappearance, a large storm moved into the area and restricted further search efforts. And to this day, Rodney remains missing. Number 7. On October 12th of 1950, an 8-year-old named Paul Jepson had been riding in a truck with his mother on a rural mountainous road near Bennington, Vermont, when he vanished. The two arrived at the family's farm when the mother asked Paul to stay in the cab of the truck while she tended to the family's pigs. The feeding only took a few minutes, but when she returned to the truck, the boy was gone. A mass search for the 8-year-old ensued, including several dozen teams consisting of more than 200 searchers. Bloodhounds were used in the search and followed a trail near the spot where Paul was last seen, but soon ran cold the further it went on. The area where Paul disappeared sits inside the Bennington Triangle, the area where several people mysteriously vanished between 1920 and 1950. Some of these disappearances include Mitty Rivers, Paul Weldon, James Tefford, Frida Lander, and several other hunters. Number 6. On August 9th of 2001, a 21-year-old camper vanished inside a remote area near Chiloquin, Oregon. He was last seen that afternoon at the campsite by his 2 friends who went to a nearby town to gather supplies, and when they returned, he was gone. The friends then notified authorities, which kicked off the 5-day search. Other than a single shoe found approximately 40 yards away in some dense woods, no other trace of Jason was found. The friends were initially interviewed and cleared of any suspicion, and the case went cold. Jason remains missing to this day. Number 5. On September 18th of this year, a 58-year-old Russian hiker named Sergey Cherepov went missing inside the Cascade Mountains near North Bend, Washington. He left his 2 hiking partners to turn around on the Golden Mire Hot Springs Trail and head back to his car at the trailhead while the others continued on to the hot springs. When they returned to the trailhead 2 hours later, Sergey's car was still there, but he was nowhere to be seen. A short but extensive search of the area turned up no sign of him. Over a month later, he remains missing. Number 4. On July 24th of 1997, at approximately 9:30 in the morning, a 24-year-old woman named Wroe Bechtel left her home in Lander, Wyoming, and drove to the Shoshone National Forest to explore the course of a 10K race held by her gym that she was planning on entering. When her husband returned home later that afternoon, Amy wasn't there, and when darkness fell, he called family members and enlisted neighbors to help with the search. The police were then notified shortly after. The next day, Amy's white Toyota station wagon was parked off of a dirt road inside the Shoshone wilderness. The keys were in the car, as well as several of her personal belongings. Authorities and family members spent several weeks searching the park and surrounding areas, but no trace of her was ever found. Over 20 years later, she remains missing. Number 3. On May 1st of 1994, a 5-year-old named Victor Shoemaker vanished while visiting his grandfather near the Short Mountains National Park in West Virginia. Victor and 2 of his cousins were playing around the grandfather's mobile home when he headed back to the trailer approximately 50 yards away to get some food. Somewhere between there and the trailer, the boy vanished. That morning, the cousins searched the heavily wooded area before notifying the grandfather, who then contacted authorities. A large search followed Victor's disappearance, consisting of several dozen search and rescue personnel, search dogs, family members, and volunteers. Soon after the search kicked off, A record-breaking storm moved into the area and complicated search efforts for nearly a week. No trace of Victor was ever found. Number 2. On July 24th of 1996, a 79-year-old man named Abraham Kalaf disappeared in a remote area of Tucson, Arizona. Abraham was last seen as he traveled from Tucson to a drilling job site located between Tombstone and Gleason. He had made arrangements to stay at the Adobe Lodge Motel, but never arrived. 3 months after his disappearance, his 1989 Dodge Ram pickup truck was discovered abandoned and stuck in a ravine in a rugged and mountainous area approximately 17 miles from the job site near Mount Diablo State Park. Abraham's personal belongings were found inside the truck. Authorities found plastic flagging tape extending northeast from the truck toward the Dragoon Mountains and in the complete opposite direction of where he was heading. Eventually, the flagging stopped appearing, and he was never seen again. Number 1. On August 10th of 1996, a 20-year-old camper named Michael Madden vanished inside the Sandbar Flat area of the Stanislaus National Forest near Sonora, California. Michael planned to meet friends for a camping and fishing trip at the campsite on the 11th, so he arrived a day earlier to set up camp. He brought his dog Matilda, camping and fishing gear, and plenty of supplies for the 4-day trip. But when the friends arrived at approximately 2 p.m. the following day, there was no sign of him or his dog. However, all of his gear, including a freshly made fire, was still at the campsite. After a brief search by the friends, they reported him missing, and an extensive search ensued, but produced no results of his whereabouts. 4 days later, his dog returned to the campsite, dehydrated. And to this day, no sign of Michael has ever surfaced. And there you have it. Just 10 more of the strangest missing person cases to add to the hundreds we've covered so far. And that's merely just the beginning. Bundle up, stay dry, and stay safe. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more videos.